Milling Through History presents From Saint to Santa. Santa Claus is known worldwide. With a bowl full of jelly for a belly, everyone loves this particular figure at Christmas, mainly because he gives out presents to good boys and good girls, and effectively is everything good and wonderful that is for Christmas. However, he does go by many other names: Kris Kringle, St. Nicholas, Father Christmas. And yet, is there actually a real Santa, or is he just completely made up from the imagination? Well, St. Nicholas seems to be the closest thing we have to a real-life Santa Claus. And the story of this particular saint is a rather unique one, if not a very difficult one to actually pin down in history. Not much is actually known about him. In fact, contemporary sources do not exist. In a day and age where scrolls and papyrus is being used to write down things, much of the actual knowledge of St. Nicholas is lost to time itself. But for what little we do know, there is at least enough to give us the foundations of the Santa Claus story. St. Nicholas was born in Asia Minor, which is present-day Turkey, to wealthy Greek parents. After their deaths, he would spread his family's wealth out to the poor. The most significant story to be attached to him was that of a devout Christian who lost all of his money due to the devil. And he had 3 daughters, all of whom had no dowries, and therefore would not be able to get married. To help this man out, St. Nicholas would take a pouch of gold and, going to his house in the middle of the night, saw an open window and toss the gold in. The next day, the man would find the bag of gold, and he would use that to pay for the dowry for his first daughter. Another night would go by, and the next day, another sack of gold would be found. This one for the dowry for the second daughter. Now, for the third night, the man decided he would go ahead and stay awake and find out exactly where all this gold was coming from. And when the third bag was thrown in, he came outside, and there he found Nicholas. Dropping to his knees, he thanked him. But Nicholas, not wanting to be known, said that this needed to be kept a secret. And so, the idea of Santa being able to come into a home, to leave presents and gifts, and then magically go away so that it was just anonymous, was born. Now, Nicholas is rather unique in the fact that he actually, after his death, became the patron of sailors. But other groups would also use him as their patron saint. These groups include archers, children, and oddly enough, pawnbrokers. During the Middle Ages, children would receive gifts on the night of December 5th, not the 25th, in honor of St. Nicholas. The movement of giving gifts to children would shift, however, from the 5th to the 6th to the 24th to the 25th during the Reformation, as an attempt by Martin Luther to have children not venerate saints, but rather venerate Christ. Now, with the rise of the Reformation, we'd start to see a transition of different folk individuals coming into prominence, most notably that of Father Christmas. Now, Father Christmas was found within the Dutch areas and Germanic areas of Europe, but in England, he really takes on a much more prominent role, namely during the reign of Henry VIII. Celebrating St. Nicholas during this particular time period was changed to Father Christmas, mainly because anything that dealt with the Catholic trappings of faith was being abandoned. But Father Christmas was unique in that he was seen as the spirit of good cheer at Christmas, along with bringing peace, joy, good food, wine, and revelry. Sadly, however, during the reign of the Puritans in England, Christmas was outlawed, and Father Christmas took on a whole new symbol. He was seen as a symbol of that of good times from the past, and so people would look fondly upon Father Christmas. When the Puritans were removed from power in England and the monarchy was restored, Father Christmas began to take a step back, and slowly his image would diminish until the publication of A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens. With its publication, Father Christmas came roaring back to life, as he was seen as being the spirit of the ghost of Christmas present, and therefore was everything that was good in Christmas. But how do we go from Father Christmas to Santa Claus? His story is a rather unique one, as Santa finds himself being a uniquely American invention. The name of Santa Claus makes its debut in the year 1773 in the state of New York. Now, while the name was more of like an anglicized version of Sister Claus, what it did do was at least create that initial basis of an anonymous gift giver at Christmas time. In 1821, a book called A New Year's Present to the Little Ones from 5 to 12 gave the very first description of Santa Claus as being on a reindeer sleigh bringing words to children. In 1823, a poem entitled A Visit from St. Nicholas would be published, furthering the lore behind Santa. Now, if you're wondering where can you find that poem, you actually know it quite well, for it was renamed The Night Before Christmas. Thomas Nast is credited with creating drawings of Santa which popularized the image of him being a jolly, heavyset man who lived on the North Pole. And it would be L. Frank Baum, author of The Wizard of Oz, who would be credited for fleshing out the backstory of Santa in 1902 with his book The Life and Adventures of Santa Claus. In fact, Santa was an extremely busy individual, as Baum would even have Santa make a cameo appearance in one of his Oz books. Starting in 1912, Santa became a popular character in film and has been featured in a number of different Hollywood productions, including, but not limited to, Miracle on 34th Street, The Santa Claus, and Elf. Coca-Cola would also use Santa as one of their advertising mascots in the 1930s and would end up creating the final iconic image of Santa in his red suit, holding a sack, and of course, having a Coke. In 1937, the Charles W. Howard Santa School was established, and this school is the oldest known school to train Santa Clauses who can be found on all your street corners. By the 1950s, Santa was no longer working alone in the North Pole. Instead, the story was added on that he had helper elves who would be building the toys for him. And in 1963, Santa was no longer a bachelor, as Mrs. Claus would come into the fold. And so, Santa and Mrs. Claus, along with their elves living on the North Pole, has become a mainstay of all children's imaginations ever since. But this doesn't mean that Santa simply just remains part of the story. His imagery is extremely important. The Salvation Army has volunteers dressed as Santa to ring bells in order to bring upon charitable desire from individuals walking by for those in need. And Santa can be found in malls, with children lining up just to meet him to tell them what they'd love to have for Christmas. And the joy of seeing him gives them some sense of great hope, namely because Santa is what brings out the best of us at Christmas. And therefore, he is certainly one who brings a great deal of magic and joy to everyone that he meets. For more information, please consider these suggested titles. Be sure to click on the left-hand side of the screen to subscribe to our show, and on the right-hand side for our latest episode. And we will see you again for the next episode of Milling Through History.